Okay, I want you to picture a scenario. It's maybe a Tuesday night, you're on the couch, totally relaxed.
Just unwinding.
Exactly. And your dog, the one who slept on your bed for years, the dog you trust completely, is dozing right next to you. You reach over, maybe just to scratch their ears, and then it happens.
The whole room just changes.
It goes cold. You hear this low rumble from deep in their chest. Maybe the lip curls up just a tiny bit.
Or in the worst case, a snap. Teeth meeting air just inches from your hand.
It's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
It feels like a betrayal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You look at this animal you love and just think, who are you?
And you just turn on me. Yeah. That reaction is so universal. It's fear, it's confusion, and honestly, a lot of heartbreak.
You immediately jump to, is my dog bad? Have I done something wrong?
But that's exactly the reaction we're going to completely dismantle today. We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating document. It's titled, Are Something Changed in My Dog? Docs by Daniel Martin.
And Martin is a veterinary surgeon. Over a decade of experience, so he's seen this from the inside. And his whole argument, his thesis, it just flips that bad dog narrative on its head.
Completely. He argues that aggression is almost never, disobedience. It's not a personality flaw. The dog isn't trying to take over your house.
Right.
Aggression is communication. It is a symptom. It is not the disease itself.
So the growl isn't the dog saying, I hate you.
No, not at all. It's the dog saying, I hurt, or I am terrified, or I am so confused right now. And Martin's whole point is that if we can just learn to speak that language, if we can hear the whisper before it becomes a shout,
right,
we can stop the bite before it ever happens.
Okay, so let's get into the first big myth he tackles. And I think this is the one you hear all the time, this idea of sudden aggression.
The out-of-nowhere snap.
He was fine, and then he just snapped out of nowhere.
That phrase, out of nowhere, Martin says it's maybe the most dangerous phrase in dog ownership because it's almost never true. The explosion feels sudden to us, but the fuse has been burning for a long, long time.
He uses this really powerful case study to illustrate it. A guy named Mark and his dog, Cooper.
Right. And Cooper is your classic good dog. Mixed breed, been with Mark for 3 years, no issues, perfect behavior.
And then one night, Mark goes to clip on the leash for a walk, and Cooper snaps at him. Fast. Scary.
And Mark does what I think most of us would do. He sort of laughs it off.
Right, you rationalize it. Oh, I must have startled him. You ignore it because it just doesn't fit the picture of the dog you know.
Exactly. But then a couple of weeks later, Mark tries to nudge Cooper off the sofa, and this time Cooper bites, makes contact, and suddenly Mark's world is upside down. He thinks his dog has had a personality transplant.
But this is where Martin introduces this concept he calls stacking, or trigger stacking. I think this is so important for us to get.
It's critical. Think of it like this. Your dog has a stress bucket, and every little stressor, big or small, adds a little bit of water to that bucket.
And we think of stressors as big things, like a thunderstorm.
Yeah, or a vet visit. But Martin points out all the small stuff. New furniture, a baby gate that wasn't there yesterday, a change in your work schedule, even just an upset stomach.
Each one is another drop in the bucket.
Another drop. So Cooper didn't bite because of the leash. He bit because his bucket was already 99% full from a dozen other tiny things that week. The leash was just the last drop that made it overflow.
It's the human equivalent of having a terrible day at work, isn't it? You spill coffee, you get stuck in traffic, your boss is mad, you hold it all in.
You tolerate it.
You tolerate it. Then you get home, your partner asks a simple question, and you just explode. And they're thinking, whoa, where did that come from?
But it wasn't about the question, it was about everything else. That is trigger stacking. Dogs tolerate and tolerate and tolerate until they just can't anymore.
The problem is we don't see the bucket filling up. We only notice the overflow. We wait for the growl. But Martin talks about this ladder of communication, and the growl is actually pretty far up that ladder.
It's way up there. The growl is the fire alarm. But before the alarm goes off, there was smoke. A lot of it.
So what does the smoke look like? What are these signals we're all missing?
They're subtle. I mean, really subtle. It's things like the dog avoiding eye contact, licking their lips when there's no food, a sudden freeze in their body, just for a second.
A whale eye, he mentions that too.
Yeah, whale eye,
Right.
where they turn their head away but keep their eyes locked on you so you see the whites. These are all incredibly polite ways of saying, please stop.
They're trying to de-escalate. They're trying to avoid a conflict.
They are pleading with us. And when we ignore those polite whispers, the dog has no choice but to shout. And for a dog, the shout is the bite.
Okay, so that's the how, the stacking the ladder. But let's dig into the why. What is filling that bucket? And this is where Martin drops a huge reality check. He calls it the invisible culprit.
Pain.
This part of the text really got to me. He says pain-related aggression is massively underdiagnosed. Why are we so bad at spotting it?
Because dogs are evolutionary masters of hiding it. In the wild, showing pain makes you a target. You get left behind or you get eaten, so they are hardwired to mask it until it's absolutely unbearable.
He uses this phrase I highlighted. Pain changes perception. Can we break that down?
It's such a key idea. Imagine you have a brutal migraine, a blinding headache, and your best friend runs up and gives you a big, loud, joyful hug. How would you react?
I'd probably shove him away. It would feel like an assault.
Exactly. The hug is the same, but you've changed. Your perception has changed. For a dog in chronic pain, a hand reaching down isn't affection anymore.
Just a threat.
It's a threat. And he's really specific about where this pain hides. It's not always an obvious limp. He talks about the big three: joints, teeth, and ears.
Let's start with joints. We think arthritis is just for old dogs.
Right. But Martin says active, younger dogs can have joint pain that flares up with cold or damp weather. They might still chase a ball, but then they ache later on.
And dental pain. I was shocked to read that dogs will eat through severe dental disease. I always thought if they're eating, they must be fine.
It's that survival instinct again. They have to eat. So you see them eating their kibble and think everything's okay, but meanwhile they have an abscess or a cracked tooth. And the second you go to pet their head...
Snap. You just touched a live wire.
Exactly. And the ears one is terrifying, especially with kids.
Yeah, talk about that.
A chronic, deep ear infection is agony. The dog's whole head becomes a no-go zone. And what's the first thing a small child does? They run up and hug the dog around the neck.
Oh, wow.
They grab the ears, and that hug translates into a bolt of blinding pain. The dog reacts defensively. It's not malice, it's reflex.
So the takeaway is non-negotiable. If a dog's behavior changes, the very first step is a vet check, a full pain assessment.
You have to. You cannot train out pain.
You cannot train out pain.
Yeah.
That should be on a billboard. Okay, but let's say you go to the vet. Dog gets a clean bill of health.
Yeah.
No pain. But they're still acting. Well, defiant.
Defiance. Our favorite human label. Martin argues that what we see as defiance is almost always fear in a different costume.
He tells the story of Emma and her spaniel, who started growling at visitors. Emma thought the dog was suddenly territorial.
Or that the dog just hated her friends. But when they looked closer, it had nothing to do with the visitors. Emma's work schedule had changed, the walks were shorter, the whole routine was gone.
So the dog was freaking out because its world had become unpredictable.
Exactly. For a dog, predictability equals safety. They are creatures of pattern. When the pattern breaks, anxiety skyrockets. The stress bucket starts filling up fast.
And he mentioned sensory overload, too. Our world is just so loud.
Incredibly loud. Construction, fireworks, the TV always on. Then add what he calls social pressure. Being cornered, being pet when you don't want to be, with no way to escape. That's a recipe for aggression.
Which leads us to the big one. The D word. Dominance.
The myth that will not die.
It really won't. I feel like we've all been taught that if a dog growls on the couch, it's because he thinks he's the boss.
He's trying to be the alpha. Martin is so clear on this. That is not what's happening. Dogs generally seek safety, not leadership. They aren't trying to stage a coup. That whole theory was based on deeply flawed studies of captive wolves from, like, the 1940s. It's been debunked for decades.
Okay, but then why does my dog growl when I try to move him off my sofa? What's he doing if not being dominant?
He is resource guarding, but we have to understand the psychology there. It's not about greed, it's about the fear of losing something valuable.
So he's not guarding the couch over me.
No, he's guarding a safe, comfortable refuge. Imagine you're in your favorite armchair, you're cozy, you feel secure, and someone comes over and physically shoves you out of it, you'd get defensive.
I'd be furious, I'd yell.
Right. And the mistake we make, because of this dominance myth, is we think we have to win that fight. We drag the dog off. We scold the growl.
Which just confirms the dog's fear.
It proves to the dog that we are unpredictable threats who steal their safe spaces. You haven't taught them respect. You've taught them to be afraid of you.
This is the trap of punishment he talks about. And it's a scary section because I think a lot of people punish out of fear, not because they're mean. They hear a growl and they react.
It's such a dangerous cycle because when you punish a growl, you are literally taking the batteries out of the smoke detector.
While the fire is still burning.
Exactly. The dog learns one thing. It is not safe for me to warn you. But the underlying fear or the pain or the anxiety, that's all still there. So what happens next time?
They skip the warning. They go straight to the bite.
And you create the very thing everyone is terrified of, a dog that bites without warning, because you taught them not to warn you. And on a physiological level, aversive training, yelling, punishment, it floods their system with stress hormones.
So you're taking a scared dog and chemically priming them to be more reactive.
You're pouring gasoline on the fire.
Okay, so punishment is out. What do we actually do? Martin breaks it down into 2 steps. Safety first, and then changing the emotion.
Safety first is all about what he calls management. And we need to rebrand that word. People hear management and they think they've failed.
Like, I couldn't train my dog, so now I have to manage him.
But Martin says management isn't failure, it's breathing room. It's stopping the bleeding so you have time to heal the wound. It means using baby gates. It means closing doors. It means having a safe zone, like a crate, where no one is ever allowed to bother the dog.
And he says, stop forcing interactions. That's a big one. Go say hi to Uncle Bob.
Let the dog decide if they want to say hi to Uncle Bob. Management stops the dog from practicing the unwanted behavior. Every time a dog growls and it works, that pathway in the brain gets a little stronger. Management stops that rehearsal.
Okay, so management stops the bleeding. How do we fix the actual problem? He talks about changing behavior versus changing emotion.
This is the absolute core of it. Obedience training stay that just controls the dog's body. You can have a dog sitting perfectly still who is screaming on the inside. Aggression comes from how the dog feels.
So the real goal is to change the feeling from fear to confidence.
That's it. And we do that with 2 big science-y sounding words, desensitization and counterconditioning.
Okay, let's break those down. What do they look like in the real world?
Desensitization just means exposing the dog to its trigger, say a stranger, but from so far away that the dog isn't reacting. They can see the stranger, but they're calm.
They're under threshold.
Exactly, they're under threshold. Then comes counterconditioning. Every time the the stranger appears, something amazing happens, like delicious roast chicken appears.
And when the stranger leaves,
The chicken goes away. So you're literally rewriting the dog's brain. You're changing the emotional association from stranger equals threat to stranger equals chicken.
you're changing the feeling.
Yeah.
And if the feeling changes, the behavior just follows.
It follows naturally. You don't have to command a dog not to growl if it's no longer afraid. If it's happy to see the stranger, the growl just disappears.
You know, for a topic that is so heavy, the end of this text is actually really hopeful, but it's a quiet hope.
It is. He really stresses that the dog isn't broken. But recovery isn't a TV show. It's not fixed in one session. It's slow. It's cumulative.
Success might not mean your dog loves going to the crowded farmer's market.
No. Success means safety. Success means your dog isn't living in a constant state of fear, and you aren't living in fear of your dog. It's about rebuilding that relationship.
There's this final idea from him that really stuck with me. He says, choosing compassion over punishment isn't being soft or ignoring the risk. It's addressing the risk intelligently.
That's the whole thing. The aggression is information. It's not a verdict. It's your dog asking for help in the only language they have left.
So if you're listening and this sounds familiar, the first step is just to take a breath. Go to the vet, look at the environment, and just listen.
Remember, you and your dog are on the same team. You both want the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, this was a lot to dig into. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Anytime.
And we'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.